Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of BC Strategies Industry Buzz. I am joined by BC Strategies experts Tom Brannen from On Convergence and Blair Pleasant from Confusion. So, Tom and Blair were about a month after Enterprise Connect. It's amazing how quickly time flies, right? So, and in some ways, you go to Enterprise Connect and you're just bombarded by information. And so, now we've kind of had the dust has settled. We've had a little bit of time to, to process things. So let's do a kind of a quick recap then 1 month kind of afterwards. Does that seem good?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay. So here it is. 1 month later, what stands out? So as usual, Enterprise Connect was at the Gaylord Palms in the Biodome. I think it poured rain like one day, but I heard it. But you're kind of in this.
We weren't outside.
Yeah, no, I didn't go. Actually, the first time I went outside was after it ended on Thursday afternoon. I walked outside because there typically is the one of the evening parties on whatever the Coquina Lounge or whatever. But they moved it inside, I guess, because the weather was bad, right? So, Tom, did you make it outside during Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Briefly for about 5 minutes, but I like to come in Sunday, and actually, so I got some outside time on Sunday. It was very nice.
So obviously, artificial intelligence, generative AI, customer experience, those were big themes at the show. In some ways, like AI kind of swallowed up everything, both in the contact center and the CCaaS and UCaaS space. And of course, there were the big vendors, the normal people that we talk about. And but I think what we wanted to do was to highlight some of the unique or some of the other kind of companies that stood out, right? So I know like the show floor was big, and it had a lot of kind of, this was shot down one of the aisles, and here's the bandwidth booth. But I mean, Blair, like maybe to you, I mean, I know there was a couple of companies that you wanted to just briefly highlight.
Yeah, it was really nice that, of course, I met with all the usual suspects, but there were also a lot of vendors that I don't normally get to meet with that were there that I had the opportunity to talk to. So that was great. So one of them was Nextiva, and I've been following Nextiva for a really long time. It's not like I was just introduced to them, but I don't think they've been to Enterprise Connect more than once or twice, if that. But they had just acquired a CCaaS vendor called 3.0, which is another small company that a lot of people haven't heard of, but I've been following for a while. So I think they're trying to get out there more. And I've always been impressed with Nextiva's customer obsession, and how they have such a strong following, even though, a lot of people haven't heard of them. So at Enterprise Connect, we talked about, of course, the acquisition of 3.0. And so now Nextiva has a really solid CCaaS offering in addition to its traditional UCaaS offering. And they also have a team collaboration offering. So, they're doing the usual, UC, team collaboration, and contact center. So they've got, and they've also got some CPaaS, but I don't think they focus on that quite as much. So they do have a collaboration product, which a lot of people probably aren't familiar with. I think it's called C-Space or something like that. And that's been around, but now they're going to be adding things like audio and video calls, calendar, document and screen sharing, online meetings, and I think a mobile app. But really the big news was, the acquisition of 3.0, which is going to help them in a lot of ways. So clearly it gives them a strong CCaaS solution, which, we've been talking about the integration of UC and CC, at least I've been talking about it forever.
Really?
So now Nextiva can really, Nextiva can really talk about it. And it's interesting with Nextiva because they've had a CRM offering. And I always thought it was unusual that they had a CRM offering and not a real strong CCaaS offering. So now they do, and they can bring everything together. The other really nice thing about the acquisition is Nextiva was one of the original BroadSoft providers. So their platform was based on BroadSoft, but now with the 3.0 has its own platform. So I think we'll expect to see Nextiva eventually moving off of the BroadSoft platform onto the 3.0
Mm.
platform. So yeah, so again, I've been following them for a long time, but it was really nice to see them at Enterprise Connect and, see lots of, these people wearing Nextiva t-shirts and stuff and the Nextiva Plus 3.0. So it was nice to see, a new player there.
Okay.
Um,
And,
another vendor I saw there who we don't usually see is Mio. And a lot of us are familiar with Mio. They've been pretty active on social media thanks to Dominic Kent.
yes.
But they've been their big focus is interop, and basically Microsoft and WebEx has been their big thing, but now they also announced interop with Teams and Google Workspace. So I'm sorry, not Teams, but Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. So that's going to enable chat and file sharing between them, and workers using Google Chat and Microsoft Teams can now share messages in real time. So it'll be really good to see that integration with Workspace and Teams. And it's now going to have directory sync, chat sync, and file sync, so that users can share files on Google Drive and SharePoint. So that's good because a lot of companies have been wanting to do that and they haven't been able to. So yeah, so like I said, their big focus has been interop, and I
Right.
think we're going to see more things coming down the pike, probably Zoom, although they said, chat is their big focus and Zoom isn't really known for chat. So it's not a top priority, but I'm sure we're going to be seeing that, coming down
Yeah.
eventually. So yeah, so interop is really important and Mio's definitely a leader in that area. So it was nice to see them there as well.
No, that's good. Hey, we were all on a Zoom chat earlier today trying to arrange some of this. So hey, I mean,
Exactly.
granted, we're on WebEx chats and Teams chats and every chat, but anyway. So Tom, I mean, I know there was a couple of organizations that you wanted to kind of call out, and where are we going to
Yep.
start?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway from Enterprise Connect though is I can't do the 16-hour days 3 days in a row. Like there's a time when I could do that, and I learned this year that I can't. But yeah, I first want to talk about NexGen. They're a
Okay.
really interesting company. So they've kind of identified this need for kind of a more connected workspace, kind of in the hybrid world, and when people are working remotely to feel less isolated. So they're kind of taking some of the ideas from the metaverse, virtual reality, but doing it kind of in a two-dimensional experience that works on your device, your computer. So you don't have to put on a headset and walk
Okay.
around. But it does give you this kind of visual of, you could be spread across the world, but it gives you this visual experience of being in the same space. So having, feeling a little bit closer and more connected with your colleagues. And it basically allows you to look at floor plans and click on different people you want to interact with. And it shows if they're available, and you can kind of, click on their office, and then you would see a different kind of office background, and then the windows would pop up for whoever's joining that. So you can do kind of scheduled stuff, but you can also kind of do those impromptu, hey, can I just ask you a quick question, and
Okay.
not have to set up a Zoom call, or like you can just click on their office. So folks are using it for kind of break times as well, where they could, click over into the break room and have kind of a cool background and a
Hmm.
cool experience there, and kind of mingle with some of their colleagues. So I think it's really cool. They had a huge presence in Enterprise Connect, a big booth, tons of people. And the area that interests me especially is they're also integrating this into contact centers. So contact center agents that might feel very isolated because all they're doing is interacting with customers all day.
Right.
They can have that visual experience. They can have that kind of downtime to get to know their coworkers a little bit better. So and then when you start to you start to overlay analytics on top of that floor plan, it allows a supervisor to be able to kind of this visual representation of what's going on in their contact center. That's a little bit different than just looking at a dashboard. They can actually look at the individual people and have little colors and highlights and stuff. And if they need to go drop in on that call, they can just click on it. So it gives them kind of a more visual and maybe an easier way to spot, potential issues. So was super excited to see them there. You know my passion for all things AR and VR.
I was going to say, I think you like the VR aspect of that. Yes,
Yeah,
but even though it's not really, but it is kind of taking, it's a 2D representation, as you say, right? So
Tom, did you happen to meet with Wheelo when you were there?
I don't think I did.
Okay, so they didn't have the same presence and they didn't have a booth, but I had a meeting with Wheelo and they do a very, very similar thing. They've got this immersive virtual space and very, very similar. And I mentioned, do you know NexGen? And they said, yeah, and they told me about, how they differentiate. But yeah, you should look into Wheelo because again, they do a very similar type of thing.
Yeah, I've met with them before actually. As you started describing that, it started to come back to me. So yeah, I'm familiar with them, and yeah, I mean, and to be honest, like I'm a little bit more forward looking. Like, their kind of thing is that metaverse may or may not come, or if it does, it's gonna be a long time from now. But we need something better than we have today. We need more integrated kind of experiences for how we collaborate, and I totally buy that vision. I'm a little bit more bullish on the VR side, but I know I'm an outlier right now as far as that's concerned. So, but yeah, great to see companies like that at Enterprise Connect. Because it's not just about phones and UC or even AI and contact center. There's a lot of these other areas that are very important.
So, and you also want to talk about InfoBip, correct?
Yeah, I love InfoBip. They're a new company to me. I mean, I'd heard about them, but have just gotten to know them this year. Met with them at Enterprise Connect. I mean, at Mobile World Congress a couple of months ago, and kind of got to see what they're doing, and then to see them at Enterprise Connect is really cool. So one of the things I really like about them is they solve a lot of problems that kind of fall through the cracks. Particularly in automating communications processes. It's one thing to say you have APIs, but kind of putting those APIs together to actually do stuff that create good experiences for customers can be a little tricky. So InfoBip can kind of come in and kind of figure out what's the best way to integrate these things together, and then kind of provide the solution for customers. And they're doing some pretty cutting edge stuff, like with some of the new integrations the carriers are starting to support. One thing they're kind of been on the forefront of is authentication. So verifying, that a cell phone is currently in a certain country if they're, applying for a loan and they're trying to do something. There are these things that are almost impossible to spoof. So what they're able to do is provide automations, tap into that information, and then kind of layer on like CPaaS, but like not just CPaaS, but like CPaaS on steroids, like, really kind of go in that full omni-channel experience without any holes. I mean, a lot of the solutions out there, they can only do certain parts of it. So I love InfoBip because that little magic that they bring is what customers actually want. A lot of this stuff makes agents more efficient, or can help reduce the number of agents, but folks like InfoBip can really help deliver that end experience that customers actually want. Like, just send me a text message and let me reply to it. Don't make me jump through all these hoops. So a lot of that automation, CPaaS, I really love.
Well, that brings me to the company LeapXpert, which I had an opportunity to. Well, I was acquainted with them before, but so what I think is interesting about this, so LeapXpert, similar to what you're saying, Tom, they add compliance track communication into different UCaaS platforms. They of course focus on Teams. So, but it's around WhatsApp and WeChat and iMessage and SMS. And so they started in the finance area where there's strong compliance, right? So if you're a trader and you're sending messages, all of those have to be compliance journaled. And there's been some big kind of settlements or fines levied against organizations in the finance and insurance space who didn't properly kind of, handle the compliance and journaling requirements. So LeapXpert, they started there, but what I thought was fascinating is, I mean, they call it communication intelligence, but it's really artificial intelligence. But what they realized is, hey, if we're doing all of this, and a lot of us now, you have email, you have chat, but you also, maybe for closer contacts, you might use your iPhone to send iMessages. it's like they're saying, well, if we have all of this, now we can layer the AI on top of it and provide insights. So outside of just really driving the compliance requirement, like if you're in sales, for example, a lot of salespeople do use just instant, kind of SMS or iMessage or to communicate, especially with their kind of good clients, right? So now this communication intelligence is able to do kind of the AI assistant thing, like give you a summary, help you prepare for an upcoming thing from a group perspective. If there's more people that are communicating with the customer, regardless of channel, you can get a good summary of that. So I thought that was what I liked about what they've done is they started in kind of the finance compliance space, and then they said, hey, we've got all this information and we layer AI on top of it. And it's real because they were showing me, and it's it was pretty impressive. So that was pretty cool. And then there was another company that I know we're all, we've dealt with in similar. This is OpenFin. I mean, this is a similar story. They start in finance. They're saying, hey, traders have these complicated desktops. And so OpenFin creates solutions where they do the integration of all these applications that traders may want on their desktop. It's a high stress environment. Every second counts. And then what I thought was cool is they say, well, wait a second, that same tooling is really good in the contact center space, right? Because while a lot of contact center vendors provide back-end integrations, from the OpenFin perspective and from the reality is, agents have to deal with not only the standard, CRM and knowledge base apps, along with their contact center apps, but a lot of times they're dealing with, line of business applications that have been created in-house. And those applications may not have, APIs associated with them. So the OpenFin approach is to say, hey, we'll give you this single pane of glass by doing integration on the agent's desktop. And, it's really impressive. And I know all three of us have had a chance to get some demos of this, is they're not only, kind of doing the single pane of glass, but it's like a single search. So if you want to search for something on a customer, it effectively under the covers, the agent searches for Kevin Kieller and it goes to every app under the covers and then brings all the results back into a single window. And the same thing with notifications, right? So I thought that was I really appreciated the pivot from kind of finance to saying, hey, this works in contact center. And the thing as well, because I love analytics, is they kind of put their money where their mouth is. So here's a picture of their booth. And, the key thing is they've got this guaranteed 20% boost in workflow efficiency, which, 20% is big. And there really is a financially backed guarantee. So Blair, Tom, yeah.
Yeah, they said even though they guarantee the 20% efficiency and productivity, normally they see a lot more, like 50%.
Right.
So yeah, they've got that guarantee, but they said that's like the minimum for what they usually can do. Yeah. So when I was there, actually, I did a whole bunch of videos with people, and I did have a chance to do a video with their CEO, Mazzy Dar. So if you go to the article I posted on BC Strategies, you can see all the videos that I did. So we talked about how basically OpenFin is the enterprise browser for CX productivity.
Right.
And the whole idea is to get all the apps together in one desktop so the agents can get that single unified view of the different apps that they need. And, they talk a lot about eliminating the toggle tax. But yeah, it's all about, agent productivity and improving the agent experience, which, I've been all over for a long time. And yeah, I was going to mention the streamlined search because I think that's really cool. So they can do the search, but then, they can do a click to call, from that search. So, you can do the search, but then you can take action on it,
Right.
which is also nice. And also the way you can customize things, it's, different widget based. So you can, agents or managers can really customize things for the way they want, which is nice. But yeah, it's all about that agent productivity, which I think is going to be such a big focus going forward. We've been talking about the customer experience for so long, and the last couple of years, we've really been talking about the agent experience, and I think that's going to continue. And, OpenFin is, really about improving that agent experience, which improves the customer experience. So
Absolutely.
I thought they had a great message.
Yeah, just following up on the customer experience, one of the things I wrote about was that, it seems like every time you call in somewhere, they ask if they can place you on a 3 to 5 minute hold.
Right.
I've worked with enough contact centers to know it, they're just looking up your information in other apps, maybe 2 or 3 apps.
Mhm.
And so they're having to copy and paste your customer number and go into the other app and search it and find the information and, update their notes. So like being able to have that single, view, or just being able to launch the other apps very easily from a clean launcher they have, and having that stuff tied together so that if you're looking at my customer information, my trouble tickets would show up, my CRM stuff would show up, kind of eliminates a lot of that, toggle tax you talked about earlier. So I love it for that. Like it absolutely, yeah, it seems like it's, going to save the company money. It's going to, as you said, Blair, improve the agent experience, but it will absolutely impact the customer experience as well as part of that. So yeah, it was super great to meet the folks there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and also it works with different CCAS. It's not
Yep.
just it has to work with the one CCAS. It layers on top of all the different CCAS platforms, so it can integrate with multiple CCAS, multiple CRM, and Kevin, as you said, proprietary apps, which I don't think is quite as common. So it takes less time to implement because they're a layer on top of things.
yeah, and if I put my kind of like my previous life, I started in software development, like enterprise architecture. It seems like the place that you would start. You'd say, oh, I'm going to integrate my contact center with all my back end apps. Now the problem is what I think that OpenFin does is brilliant is like, yeah, so then effectively you say search for this, and it's really the contact center at the back end that then calls the APIs if they exist, which they sometimes don't, for all the other kind of apps, pulls the data together and then returns it to the agent. That sounds great in concept, but with the OpenFin approach, these searches are sent out asynchronously. So for instance, if, Tom, you mentioned like trouble tickets. So let's say you're searching for Kevin Kieller, and let's say I have some tickets open. Well, if that app returns the results, more quickly, that starts to populate. So the agent gets that. And if there's a slower running search, I mean, that just kind of comes back and, populates into the same unified search result window. And I think that radically, that asynchronous processing, as simple as a concept as it is, I mean, it has huge productivity enhancements, right? Because the first thing's being returned, I'm not blocked by waiting for the slowest return, right? So I think like that just is like a brilliant experience. And I think that's, to your point, Blair, why they can kind of, they're comfortable promising 20%, efficiency improvement, because they realize that most often they get much higher. So yeah, yeah, no, that was very exciting. And yeah, so I think that these companies that we've highlighted, there of course was Amazon and Google and Microsoft and Cisco and the Ring Central, the big players. But I think it was worthwhile drilling down on that. So the other thing that I was there, and it's like I find this super interesting. So this is like Thursday afternoon, right? So the show floor is open till Wednesday, and then a lot of the vendors kind of pack up Wednesday afternoon, evening, and head out. So Thursday morning at Enterprise Connect is typically the lock note, which I love that session, but it's much fewer. So it's like everybody can kind of fit into one of the smaller rooms, and then by Thursday afternoon, I was having dinner with my aunt and uncle who live in the area, and we're coming down to the Gaylord Palms, and we were going to meet up for dinner. But this was Thursday afternoon, like all the signage is down, and it feels like a ghost town, right? So until the next year, but a great conference. It was great to see the people. It was great to see both of you. Blair, Tom, any final kind of looking back now that we're a month after? Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Well, I think it's important to, not just pay attention to the big players, as you said, and there's, so many other vendors out there that are worth exploring, whether it's, in UCAS or CCAS or, any of these other areas. So, so much attention is paid to, the big players, but
Right.
there's a lot of niche applications out there, a lot of niche vendors. So it's really important to kind of, maybe look beyond, the Gartner Magic Quadrant and see, which vendors are out there who can really solve your needs.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Tom, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm looking back. I'm also kind of looking forward to see what their the Enterprise Connect AI conference coming up this fall is going to be like.
Right.
And how who will be there that's also at Enterprise Connect, who will be there that's not at Enterprise Connect. I think that's going to be really interesting to kind of follow that as they can continue to lean more in AI. I mean, AI is in everything now. It's in hardware, it's in switches, it's in you know sunglasses, it's in it's really everywhere. So just continuing to see that how that develops, something I'll be looking forward to this year.
No, that's yeah, definitely an interesting. It'll be yeah. I was talking to Eric Kraft, and I think that it's yeah, October on the West Coast. I think what Santa Clara, and
I think so.
I think it's an interesting experiment. And then to your point, Tom, yeah, how will it expand beyond? AI is not only in communications and collaboration, so what will the mix be, right? So I think it's a great experiment, and it'll be interesting for sure to watch. But for this kind of BC Strategies industry buzz, thank you both for your time and your insights. I learned things as always. And until next time, take care.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you, Kevin. See you, Blair.
Bye.